Have you ever noticed how some moments end, but somehow never leave your mind? What if the thing destroying your peace today already ended long ago? A painful conversation, a betrayal, a mistake you made years ago. The moment passed, the world moved on, and the people involved probably forgot about it long ago. But deep inside, you're still carrying it like a heavy stone chained to your heart. And the truth is, many of us suffer far more from our memories than from reality itself. Welcome to Lessons for Life Tales. Tonight's story is not just an ancient Zen tale, it is a mirror that may reveal the hidden burden quietly stealing your happiness every single day. It's the story of two monks, one river, and a lesson so powerful that it has changed lives for generations. By the end of this story, you may finally understand why your mind feels tired and what you must let go of to truly find peace again. So take a deep breath, relax, and if stories about life, wisdom, and inner strength inspire you, be sure to subscribe to Lessons for Life Tales and join us on this journey together. Long ago, in the mist-covered mountains of ancient Japan, where temple bells echoed softly through cedar forests and narrow stone paths disappeared into the morning fog, two Zen monks began a long journey between distant monasteries. Though they walked the same road side by side, the worlds inside their minds could not have been more different. The first monk was Tanzan, calm, gentle, and deeply at peace with himself. His movements were slow and effortless, his eyes carried a quiet wisdom, and every step he took seemed free from fear, anger, or doubt. He was the kind of man who did not need to prove his spirituality, because peace naturally flowed from him. Beside him walked Ekido, younger and far more rigid. His robes were perfectly folded, his posture perfectly straight, and his mind tightly chained to rules and discipline. Ekido believed true purity meant strict control, never bending, never questioning, never making mistakes. While Tanzan moved through life like flowing water, Ekido walked like stone. And before this journey ended, one simple moment beside a river would expose the difference between wisdom and mere obedience. For hours, the two monks continued their journey beneath a dark and restless sky. Thick rain clouds rolled over the mountains like waves of smoke, and soon a cold storm swept across the countryside. Rain poured endlessly from the heavens, soaking their robes and turning the narrow dirt road into deep, sticky mud. Their straw sandals sank with every heavy step, while fierce winds bent the bamboo trees along the path. Yet neither monk spoke a single word. Then, as they rounded a bend near a swollen river crossing, they suddenly saw her. A young woman stood trembling at the edge of the rushing water, clutching the sleeves of her pale blue silk kimono tightly against her body. Her face was filled with fear. The river had become violent from the storm, its muddy currents crashing against the rocks with dangerous force. One wrong step could easily sweep her away. For a brief moment, the air itself seemed to freeze. Ekido glanced toward the woman, then immediately looked away, his expression hardened. In his mind, the rules of the monastery were absolute. Monks were forbidden from touching women under any circumstance. To him, even looking too long was dangerous. So without hesitation, he lowered his eyes and continued walking forward, pretending she was not there at all. But behind him, Tanzan had stopped moving. Tanzan stood silently in the falling rain, his calm eyes resting gently on the frightened young woman beside the river. Unlike Ekido, there was no struggle inside him, no fear of judgment, no battle between compassion and rules. He simply saw another human being in need. With the same peaceful expression he had carried all day, Tanzan stepped closer and spoke softly. "Come, I will help you across." The woman looked at him in surprise, uncertain at first, as the river roared violently beside them. But before fear could stop her, Tanzan carefully lifted her into his strong arms, as though she weighed nothing at all. The cold water surged around his legs as he slowly crossed the river, each step steady against the powerful current. Rain continued to fall across his face, yet his mind remained completely still. There was no hesitation in him, no guilt, no shame, only quiet compassion. Finally, he reached the other side and gently placed the woman down onto dry ground. She bowed deeply, her voice trembling with gratitude, but Tanzan simply smiled politely and gave a small nod. Then, Without another thought, he turned around and continued walking down the muddy road as calmly as before, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Behind him, however, Aikido stood frozen in disbelief, unable to understand what he had just witnessed. The two monks continued walking through the fading storm, but while the rain slowly began to disappear from the sky, another storm was growing inside Aikido's mind. He could barely focus on the road ahead. Again and again, he replayed the moment beside the river. Tanzan lifting the young woman into his arms. Tanzan carrying her through the rushing water. Tanzan breaking the sacred rules so calmly, as if nothing was wrong. Aikido's jaw tightened with every step through the mud. How could he do such a thing? He thought bitterly. A monk should never touch a woman, especially someone young and beautiful. The more he thought about it, the heavier his anger became. Hours passed in complete silence. The rain clouds slowly drifted away, revealing soft golden light across the distant mountains. Birds returned to the trees, and the sound of flowing water became peaceful once again. Nature itself seemed calm and free, but inside Aikido, there was no peace at all. His thoughts twisted endlessly between judgment, confusion, and outrage. Part of him wanted to confront Tanzan immediately, yet another part feared the answer he might hear. Meanwhile, Tanzan walked beside him with the same quiet expression as before, completely undisturbed, as though the river crossing had already disappeared from his mind. And without realizing it, Aikido had begun carrying something far heavier than the woman Tanzan left behind hours ago. By the time the sun began sinking behind the mountains, the silence between the two monks had become unbearable. The storm was gone now, and the evening sky glowed with soft shades of orange and gold, but inside Aikido, the anger he had been holding back all day finally erupted. He suddenly stopped walking and turned sharply toward Tanzan, his face tight with frustration. "How could you do that?" he burst out, his voice trembling with emotion. "We are monks. We have taken sacred vows. We are forbidden from touching women, especially young and beautiful ones. Yet, you carried her in your arms, as if those rules meant nothing." His breathing grew heavier, as months of discipline and years of rigid belief poured out through his words. "Do you not care about our teachings? About purity? About honor?" The quiet road between the trees seemed to freeze around them. Even the wind had gone still. But while Aikido burned with outrage, Tanzan remained completely calm. He slowly turned to face his younger companion, his eyes gentle and undisturbed, showing no anger, no shame, and no desire to defend himself. For a long moment, he simply looked at Aikido in silence. Then, with a peaceful voice softer than the evening wind, Tanzan finally spoke the words that would change everything. Tanzan looked calmly into Aikido's furious eyes, and for a brief moment, the world around them seemed to disappear into silence. The wind no longer moved through the trees. The distant sound of water faded into the night. Then Tanzan spoke quietly, almost gently. "Brother, I set the woman down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The words struck Aikido like lightning in the darkness. Suddenly, everything inside him stopped. His anger froze. His thoughts collapsed into silence. For hours, he had believed Tanzan was the one who broke discipline, the one who carried a burden. But now, standing beneath the fading light of sunset, Aikido realized the painful truth. Tanzan had carried the woman across the river for only a few moments, then completely let her go. But Aikido, the monk who never touched her even once, had carried her in his mind the entire journey. He had carried her through judgment, through anger, through obsession, through endless thoughts that poisoned his peace with every passing step. And in that moment, Aikido finally understood something most people never realize in their entire lives. The heaviest burdens are not the ones we carry in our hands, but the ones we refuse to release from our minds. The river was already far behind them. The woman was gone. The storm had passed. Yet, Aikido had remained trapped at that river crossing all day, chained not by reality, but by his own thoughts. And maybe that is why this story feels so painfully real. Because deep down, most of us are living exactly like Aikido without even realizing it. Someone hurt us years ago, yet we still replay their words in our minds before we fall asleep at night. A relationship ended long ago, but part of our heart is still standing at that emotional riverbank, refusing to move forward. We carry guilt over mistakes nobody else even remembers. We carry regret for opportunities we missed, anger toward people who betrayed us, and shame from moments we wish we could erase. The event itself may have lasted only minutes, but the suffering continues for years because we keep carrying it inside our thoughts. And the hardest part is that while we remain trapped in those memories, life keeps moving forward without us. The people who hurt us may already be laughing, healing, or living peacefully while we continue fighting battles that ended long ago. That is what overthinking does. It turns temporary pain into permanent exhaustion. It chains the mind to moments that no longer exist anywhere except inside our memory. Just like Aikido, many people spend their entire lives mentally standing beside old rivers they should have crossed years ago. But this story reminds us of something powerful. Peace does not come from changing the past. Peace comes from finally putting it down. Tanzan's simple actions beside that river leave us with 4 powerful lessons that can completely change the way we live our lives. First, compassion matters more than rigid rules. While Aikido focused only on what was forbidden, Tanzan focused on what was needed. He saw a frightened human being standing helpless before danger, and instead of hiding behind rules, he chose kindness. True wisdom is not cold or heartless. It understands when love and humanity matter more than pride or perfection. Second, learn to let go once the moment is past. Tanzan carried the woman for only a few seconds, then released the experience completely. He did not replay it. He did not defend himself. He simply moved forward with a peaceful heart. So many people destroy their present because they keep reliving their past. Third, judgment traps the mind more than any prison ever could. Aikido suffered not because of reality, but because of the story he created inside his own thoughts. The more he judged, the heavier his burden became. And finally, this story teaches us that inner peace matters far more than outward perfection. Aikido looked disciplined on the outside, but inside he was filled with conflict. Tanzan, however, remained calm, free, and emotionally light. Real strength is not about appearing perfect to the world. It is about having a quiet mind, a compassionate heart, and the wisdom to release what no longer belongs in your soul. So before this story ends, take one quiet moment and ask yourself honestly, what are you still carrying today? Is it an old argument that still burns inside your heart? A painful memory you replay over and over again? A betrayal you cannot forgive? Or maybe guilt from a mistake you made years ago that no one else even remembers anymore? Whatever it is, remember this: your life is too precious to remain trapped beside a river you crossed long ago. The past cannot be changed, but the weight you continue carrying can be released. And sometimes, true healing begins the moment you finally decide to stop fighting with yesterday. Just like Tanzan, you deserve to walk forward with empty hands and a peaceful mind. Imagine how light your heart could feel if you stopped carrying anger, regret, and overthinking everywhere you go. Imagine waking up without the heavy storms inside your thoughts. That peace is possible, but only if you are willing to let go. Thank you so much for spending these moments with us here on Lessons for Life Tales. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone who needs this message today, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue growing together through stories that inspire the soul. And wherever you are in life right now, may your heart find peace, your mind find clarity, and your journey ahead be filled with strength, healing, and happiness.